Mother.
I just did it again.
You see, mother, your mother's a gracious person. He says, you're the one with the big mouth.
It's learning line, right? How many minutes?
30.
Okay. So that was a good meeting then, right?
Yeah.
Wow. So they hit it off right from the beginning.
Huh?
They hit it off right from the beginning. Your mother and Delphine hit it off right
Yeah.
from the first meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, she'd be working until 9 p.m. and wanted me to meet her at the usual place. I informed Mother and Sally that I was going out on a date and would be home sometime after midnight. After that, they sufficiently recovered from my candid remarks and then teased me a bit, which I accepted a good naturally, but I could see Mother's apprehension and concern. So be it, I thought at least they would be apprised of my intentions. It was early, almost an hour, and since I did not want to go in the store, I parked the car and walked about the various stores on Main Street. I did not wander too far, thinking she might get out a little earlier than anticipated and I would miss her. When Delphine came out of the store, it was just a little way from the rear entrance. I hurriedly came forward so that she would see me. She looked radiant and there was a swelling of pride in that, and I was part of her existence, and all part of the first. She spotted me and came to meet me.
God bless you.
Yeah, thank you. She spotted me and came to meet me, smiling as she approached. I took her outstretched hand and we started to walk towards a car. It was obvious that we both delighted to see one another as I was taken over by the sight of her, and I blurted out how much I missed her and how delighted it was to see her once again. She smiled cordially but said nothing directly. "Are you hungry?" I asked as I held the door for her into the car, viewing her skirt above her knees, and sat down. She smiled and said, "I was a little hungry. It's been a long day. How about a spaghetti dinner at the Red Devil?" I ventured, knowing that she would be agreeable. "That would be great." She were moving a bit closer to me, and I got a whiff of her tantalizing perfume that she was wearing. She wore just the right amount of makeup and emphasized her alluring eyes. As we waited for dinner, we talked about her long day at work and how she felt it would never end. She did mention that she was looking forward to tonight and was a little jittery at the time come closer for us to meet. And then I told her I thought about going to Delwood with her tonight, and then asked what she thought of that prospect. She looked a little puzzled. "When you're really thinking about going to there, were you really thinking about going there?" she asked, fingering her glass of wine nervously and crossing her legs. "No, I just was teasing you. I like to watch your expressions when you get serious and a bit flustered." She moved about in her seat, crossing and uncrossing her legs, and I could see that she did not care to put under the glare of personal feelings. As we talked, there was a rapid infusion of exchange of ideas both had spoken and alluded to. The exchange was natural and spontaneous, with a relinquish of honesty and integrity, no matter what the outcome. I felt that Delphine was sincere and forthright in her conviction and sentiments, and that she would never compromise her position for material of a social game. "This is where we sat the last time we were here," she stated, as she began our meal. I complimented her on her keen observations, and she seemed pleased with my comment, but she did not elaborate on it or attempt to make it more than it warranted. I asked her about work and if she liked what she was doing. She exclaimed that she liked meeting people, and that part was very interesting and intriguing. but most part, the rest of the job was boring and routine. And that if she didn't have Rosie and Agnes to break up the day, she would not know what she would do. She did not want to do this particular thing the rest of her life, like Agnes, who unfortunately was relegated to do just that. In many ways emphasized with Agnes being alone with her mother and nothing to look forward to. This touch a tender nerve as far as I was concerned, but I could not pursue the thought any further, and she went on to other subjects. She talked about her parents and how they fussed during Christmas and Easter, and what a big thing it was for them when they were smaller. She mentioned a trip to New York City a few years back with her cousin, and how strange and exciting it all was, but she had not desired to return. She liked the city of Buffalo and felt at home as it filled the memories, early childhood and growing up in its environment. I listened to her with great admiration and interest. For as I listened, I was forming a mental picture how lovely and warm person, with no great material advantage bestowed upon her, but in the same instance was not at all better or disillusioned in not receiving that advantage. She accepted her fate with reservations, but she was not possessed with a great burning desire to rectify its shortcomings. I was also impressed with her spontaneous questions with no prodding on my part. It was also enlightening that I felt I knew her much better and I liked her all the more. Delphine never asked questions regarding me I thought was strange, even though I would gladly answer any of her questions, which was strange in itself. We had finished our dinner as we walked back to the car, and I took her hand and told her that she was an exceptional person, as well as charming and beautiful. She was a little flustered at my remarks, but otherwise took them graciously and quickly changed the subject. We drove out of Main Street, part of the University of Buffalo, out beyond Eggertsville and Snyder, all the while talking and listening to one another and enjoying all of it. I felt relaxed at the ease, but Delphine moved closer to me, where I once again had whiffs of her perfume, which were enrapture me and set my thoughts trailing onto other matters. Before I realized we were almost to the transit road, so engrossed in our conversation with each other, I completely lost touch of our location. We were in Williamsville just before Transit Road when I spotted a small nightclub to the right. I pulled over to the parking lot and asked Delphine if she would care to dance a while before we headed back home. She agreed and we entered the establishment. It was rather small but warm and cozy, with a small circular dance floor. There was a 3 or 4 piece band playing that night. As it played, the small crowd inside paid little attention to them. We were seated at one of the tables sprinkled about the enclosing dance floor. I ordered a scotch and water for myself, and Delphine reluctantly had a glass of white wine. She stated that she did not normally drink and felt awkward doing it now. I agree with her, and I also did not drink, but said that when you're in places such as this, you're almost expected to drink something. She agreed, and I asked her if she would care to dance. As we approached the dance floor, I followed her. I could not help noticing her attractive figure. We began to dance, and I felt it natural to hold her closely. She was relaxed and composed and enjoying the closeness. We would dance several numbers and then sit out the next 2 or 3 just to talk, to listen to one another. I must have had at least 3 drinks of scotch and water, and I could feel the effect. Gradually. A warm glow came over me. I imagined Delphine was having a little of the same effect, and she was having the same number of glasses of wine. I could see that her cheeks were becoming somewhat flushed, and she was completely relaxed and tranquil. We danced a bit more as it was getting late, and we decided to get back to the table. Delphine excused herself and retreated to the powder room. I felt the old time once again, and I thought of Anne, Renee, and Jean, what they also would meet. They would also meet. I took her hand and we walked to the car. I took her hand and we walked to the car. I noticed a small frame marquee embedded in the ground on one side of the parking lot. Its blazing lights displayed the words, Colonial Inn, in its flashing color. We entered the car and it seemed darkened outside the area where we parked. I turned towards Delphine, took her arms, and began kissing her and her presence and the amount of scotch I had consumed. She responded warmly and kissed me. As we held each other, I started the car. The car's approaching headlights broke the spell and she had moved away so I might start the car. As we drove out of the parking lot, she moved close to me and put her head on my shoulder. I put her hand in mine. We drove back to Main Street, Bailey Avenue, and then to Broadway and turned to Coons. It was after 1 a.m. when I was a little concerned about the lateness of the hour and how Delphine's parents would react to it. I turned off the headlights and left the engine running. May I see you tomorrow? I ordered, holding her hand. I worked this stupid shift work, and I'll go into midnight. Tuesday I won't see you for a whole week. She turned toward me and replied, let's go on a picnic at the Delaware Park. I'll bring a picnic basket. That should be fun. Great, I responded. I'll pick you up here about 1. With that, she reached over and kissed me gently on the cheek, and she was out of the car before I could react to her leaving. She turned as she got to the side of the door, waved, and went inside. I sat there a moment reflecting and drove off. With a change in perception, I thought I had Delphine's attitude and demeanor all wrong. Instead of aloof, I believe her to be, she was all of a sudden became bright, a loving personality whom I could become extremely fond of. We had much in common, even though our backgrounds were different, and I assumed she led a more sheltered life than I, but basically we're much similar in temperament and outlook. I felt good night driving home as we're looking forward and seeing Delphine and meeting her family. Well, meeting her family would be an ordeal, as it always was for me. I was thankful that it was not the other way around, she coming to meet my family. I got home a little before 2 a.m. and Mother and Sally were sound asleep. Loki was not home yet. I quietly washed up, brushed my teeth, and slipped into bed. I thought about Delphine and how this evening reminded me of the times I spent with Renee and how much alike they both were physically and emotionally. I knew it was impossible to make comparisons, but it was slowly registering with me the strange and almost arcane sensation Delphine instilled in me with perhaps a distorted fashion closely associated with Renee. It would be much later in our relationship that I would discover how that relationship fit into the scheme of things. I also, before I fell asleep, how I was to break the news to Mother that I was going out again tomorrow. And in the early afternoon, somehow I did not take on the significance of being a big crisis anymore. Mother would have to adjust and trust. Mother would have to adjust in a sense of responsibility. As I drove to Delphine's house that Sunday afternoon, I felt a little apprehensive, but I also felt something that would once again witness the other live their lives together, tranquility and lovingly. I had seen this time and time again with Anne and her mother, and then Jean and her parents, but I never viewed it with Renee, as both of her parents were deceased. Delphine met me at the door, and I could see her. She was as nervous as I was. I gave her hand a squeeze, and she put on her other hand into mine for a moment. She walked ahead of me into the living room, where her mother and father were seated. Her father was not home, and I took this as a good omen. How many minutes on that tape?
13.
Huh?
13? 13 left.
She introduced me to her mother, and I smiled warmly as I greeted her. She seemed to be a loving parent, but my instant feeling was that I'd never be close to her, which proved to be correct in the distant future. Why did you feel that you would never be close to Delphine's mother?
Because I had my own mother.
What the-
Huh?
Because you had your own mother, but did you like Delphine's mother?
Oh, yeah, well, there was a difference. There's a difference, Dave, there's a difference.
How did Delphine's mother greet you?
Cordially.
Very
Yeah.
nice. Was anyone else home?
Well, I don't know where the husband, I know the husband was working. He works at Ford.
And how about the dog?
The dog was there, but they put the dog in the cellar. Well, I don't know what the hell to do with the damn dog. I was going to kick the damn dog outside.
Was your brother or sister there?
No.
We talked a little again. I had this distinct impression that Delphine was not her favorite child. What would make you say that?
And then what?
You said that you didn't think Delphine, you thought that Delphine was not her mother's favorite
No,
child.
she wasn't.
What would made you say that?
Cecile was the mother's favorite child. She was in the same position I was. A has-been.
Why was Cecile the favorite child?
Huh?
Why was Cecile the favorite child?
Because she was a big wheel. She worked in Washington. My mother thought she worked with the president.
Was Cecilia a drinker?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Did she die of alcoholism?
She died of alcoholism, yeah. Yep.
Did she go before her mother and father?
Yeah.
She did. I got the direct impression that Delphine was not her mother's favorite. Even though she loved her very much, being a minority in my own family, I quickly gained the insight like situations in close groups. All the telltale signs were there, an apparent apathy of their mothers regarding her daughter's acquaintance, aloofness displayed to me. The mother's demeanor towards both of us, finally, and the absence of the father. A few minutes into the conversation, I could see that Delphine was anxious to depart, which reminded me somewhat of the scenario I had observed with Rose and her parents. We said our goodbyes, and Delphine went into the kitchen for the picnic basket. I followed her there, and she put her items from the refrigerator into the basket. I could see that she was uneasy. The small dog barking in the kitchen did not help either. I took her hand and tried to reassure her that helping with the basket. She smiled up at me, and I could see that she had gained her composure once again. Where were you going on a picnic to?
That park in Buffalo,
Uh-huh.
right next to the sanitarium.
Oh, boy. When you went to the picnic, she take her dog?
Huh?
When she went to the picnic with you, did she take her dog?
Took the dog? No.
No?
No, he didn't take the dog.
She returned to the living room where her mother was still seated and said goodbye once again. I could hear her mother saying something to her about could not make it out. We reached the car after stowing the picnic basket in the trunk. I sat there a moment with Delphine. I told her that her mother was a sweet, loving person and how lucky she was to have someone like that. That bolstered her somewhat, and she slid over next to me and took my hand and smiled. We drove out to Bailey until we reached Kensington Express, and then we drove until we came to the Humboldt Parkway. Delaware Park was parked just across the street from the Delaware Lake. It was a warm afternoon, sunny, and the park was full of strollers and people canoeing and picnicking. We drove around until we found a spot with a picnic table along the lakefront and just across from the casino. I didn't know they had a casino there.
Where?
Buffalo had a casino back then?
In the park? Yeah.
Delphine had brought along a tablecloth, and I watched her set the various items out onto the table from the basket. I thought of the time so very long ago when I watched Anne make the same movements. And then as now I watched her beautiful figure of a woman go through the same motions, doing something for me. I felt gratified at the prospect of it. You look terrific, I said, watching her scamper around the table with her full skirt blowing about in a breezing lake wind. We sat down at the picnic table and began to eat what she had prepared. There were several assorted sandwiches and delicious rolls and bread along a variety of pickles, sliced tomatoes, cucumbers, and olives. She had prepared a container of iced tea for dessert, and then it was an assortment of cookies and small cakes. Wow, that was a big picnic.
Yeah.
Wow. It was all very delicious, I exclaimed, reaching for another roll. Looks like you're a pretty good cook. Was Delphine a good cook?
No. My mother taught her how to cook.
How did that work out? How'd your
That worked
mother
out good. She was a good teacher.
But how'd your mother get involved in teacher? What happened there?
When I said teach my mother Delphine, she was pleased.
I know, but did you tell your mother to teach Delphine to cook?
I told Mom, I said, Mom, get a hold of Delphine, teach her how to cook. She's killing me. Well, my mother got the message, and she started teaching her.
And how long did it take her to learn?
Oh, about 2 months, 2 weeks.
What kind of things did your mother teach her to cook?
Stuffed cabbage, macaroni and cheese, spaghetti and macaroni, bake a loaf cake, and do some bacon and that. She definitely couldn't absorb all that she was giving her, but she picked it up. She picked it up as we were running along. She started using that stuff my mother gave her.
So then, after she learned to cook, did your mother do still cooking for you guys at times?
No, we come home some in the afternoon to my mother's house for cooking, for supper. No, we never deterred on my mother's cooking, no.
What was the most famous dish that Delphine would make for you?
Famous dish? I think it was stuffed cabbage.
That was really good.
Yeah. Stuffed cabbage, mashed potatoes.
Delphine only smiled and poured me some iced tea.
Huh?
I'm reading about the picnic. Delphine only smiled and poured me some iced tea. She seemed content with the success of the picnic, and I asked her if she prepared the entire picnic basket. She quickly became serious for a moment and reiterated that she had done it all, and it was only sandwiches and iced tea. We watched couples out on the lake in the canoes and paddle boats, and I asked if she would like to go canoeing. She agreed. After stowing some of the picnic food as we walked down to the casino where the canoes were docked, I helped her into the canoe, steadying it as it rocked and rolled. We both laughed at the moment. Delphine sat facing me, and I paddled out to the middle of the lake, watching out for other canoers and paddle boats. Now, as not to run into them, she began flicking water at me and enjoying it greatly as I paddled and tried to steer the canoe into some kind of direction. She looked inviting sitting there, but each time she made the attempt, she would rock the canoe and I would try to keep it on level keel. We laughed about it and I enjoyed her elation. And how many minutes?
3.
How many?
3.
But each time she attempted, she would rock the canoe and I'd try to keep it on an even keel. We laughed about it and enjoyed her elation as her entire face would be aglow and her eyes would light up and her lips pout in the amorous setting. After a while, we returned to the picnic table. I sat there munching. I asked Delphine what Rosalie and Agnes thought of your going out with me. Without hesitation, she replied that they thought she was fortunate and they would make a good-looking couple. I smiled at that suggestion and we moved closer to her. Taking her hand, I asked her if she had any other male friends. Any other male friends?
What do you mean by that?
You said you're in the canoe and you're taking your hand, and he asked her if she had any other boyfriends. I asked her if she had any other male friends. You asked Delphine that.
In the canoe?
Yeah.
Claire?
She hesitated. Hello, Claire.
Come on in, have a seat.
And it's Claire again.
Play it back after these 3
Yeah.
minutes, okay? Come on in, Claire.
2 minutes left.
We wonder what happened to you.
Have a seat.
Well, nothing happened to me.
Nothing happened to you? Okay. How about a water?
You want some water?
But one of these?
Candy?
Yeah.
Okay. We're just finishing up on this chapter, and we're going to play something.
We're on a picnic. We're on a picnic.
They're on a picnic.
Okay, I've never heard about a picnic, so.
Yeah, this is brand new. Him and Delphine went on a picnic, and they're getting to know each other.
Yeah.
And they had a beautiful picnic, lunch. A lot of things were there.
Delphi was learning to cook.
And
Delphi was learning how to cook.
then my father's mother taught Delphine how to cook. She hesitated for the moment. I said, yes, I've known for a while, but I do not believe of anything serious. You asked if she had a boyfriend. She hesitated for a moment and said, yes, and once I've known for a while, but I don't believe it's anything serious. We gone bowling several times and to the movies, and my parents met him. My mother likes him, but my mother is easily pleased. She was flustered when she revealed the information to me, and I rather thought she was waiting for the right opportunity to tell me. She almost felt relieved after telling me, and I reciprocated by saying that I had no serious female friends.
Right, the old boyfriend, huh?
And wind it up.
Oh, you want to
18 seconds.
play it back? Something?
Yeah, we can play it back.
No, you want to go further?
No, that's too long.
Okay. The tape is out, so we're going to play it back. We're going to end up here at Courting Delphine, page 568. I'm gonna mark it, then we'll listen to it.